In February 2001, after a remarkable global effort, the Human Genome Project published its first draft in an effort to map the 3 billion base pairs of our entire genome.
AI just unlocked an ancient human genome, and what it found shouldn't exist. Hidden in the DNA are secrets of mysterious people, lost connections, and ancestors no one expected. History is lying to us, and the truth is stranger than we imagined. But how dangerous could this truth be? Join us as we unravel the secrets behind this mystery. The breakthrough moment. In the middle of the 2025 to 2026 period, something quiet but powerful happened inside modern science labs around the world. It did not come with loud announcements or flashing lights. Instead, it arrived softly, through screens filled with letters, numbers, and patterns that looked almost meaningless at first glance. Yet those patterns held the oldest stories humans have ever left behind. For decades, ancient DNA had been one of science's greatest challenges. DNA is fragile. Time breaks it apart. Heat, water, bacteria, and even air slowly destroy it. After thousands of years, what remains is often damaged, mixed with other material, or barely readable. Scientists could only recover small fragments, like broken sentences from a burned book. High-quality ancient genomes were extremely rare, and many believed that full stories from the deep past were simply lost forever. By the middle of the 2025 decade, this belief began to change. Artificial intelligence entered the field, not as a replacement for human scientists, but as a powerful helper. Deep learning models were trained to understand DNA patterns the way the human brain understands language. These systems could look at broken genetic fragments and predict what once existed between them. They could notice patterns too faint or too complex for traditional methods. Inside interdisciplinary laboratories, computational biologists worked side by side with archaeogeneticists and evolutionary scientists. These teams combined ancient bones, soil samples, and genetic fragments with advanced algorithms. The labs were quiet but full of tension. Screens glowed late into the night. Data streamed in slowly, then faster, as the systems processed ancient genetic code. What made this moment special was not just that AI helped rebuild ancient DNA. It was what appeared once the reconstruction began. The models did more than fill in missing letters. They compared patterns across time and populations. They searched for links, gaps, and signals that had been overlooked for years. In doing so, they revealed hints of human history that did not match long-accepted maps of migration and evolution. Scientists saw genetic signatures that did not fit known human groups. These patterns suggested lineages that were unexpected, hard to explain, and deeply mysterious. They were not imaginary, and they were not errors. They appeared again and again as the models tested different scenarios. The data pointed toward populations that seemed to exist outside the neat lines drawn in textbooks. This was the moment when AI appeared to read between the lines of human history. It did not invent new ancestors. Instead, it noticed what had always been there, but could not be clearly seen before. The mystery was not that the past was rewritten, but that it was finally speaking in a clearer voice. The discovery felt gentle and unsettling at the same time. It suggested that human history was more complex, more woven together than anyone had fully understood. Evolution was not a straight road. It was a network of paths that crossed, faded, and reappeared. The AI outputs did not give answers right away. They offered questions, and those questions were powerful enough to change how scientists thought about where humans came from. As researchers watched the screens update with new results, they understood that this was only the beginning. The past had opened a door, and something ancient was waiting on the other side. But long before artificial intelligence existed, a single frozen strand of hair had already proven that the past could survive. The first ancient genome. The story of ancient DNA did not begin with machines or modern laboratories. It began quietly, in frozen ground, many decades earlier. During the 1980s, scientists working in Greenland recovered a small but extraordinary sample from the Arctic environment. Preserved in permafrost was a lock of human hair, untouched by warmth for thousands of years. This hair belonged to a person from the Sakak culture, a group that lived in the Arctic long before modern records. The cold had protected the hair in a way that no museum or vault ever could. Inside it remained fragments of DNA, fragile but real. At the time, technology was not yet advanced enough to fully understand what this hair carried. Still, it was carefully stored, waiting for the right moment. That moment came years later, when genetic science advanced far enough to attempt something never done before. Researchers used the preserved hair to reconstruct an ancient human genome. The hair was dated to around 4,000 years ago, placing it deep in human prehistory. The location, near the Greenland Arctic Circle, offered rare conditions that slowed decay and protected genetic material. When scientists finally succeeded, it became the first high-resolution ancient human genome ever reconstructed. This achievement proved something many had doubted. Ancient genomes were not forever broken. With care, precision, and patience, they could be decoded to reveal real details about ancient lives. The genome revealed ancestry, adaptation to cold and physical traits. It showed that ancient DNA could tell a complete story, not just scattered hints. This breakthrough changed everything. It showed that the past was not silent. It simply required the right tools to listen. The success of the Sakak genome opened doors across the world. Researchers began looking again at ancient remains once thought unusable. Frozen ground, caves, and dry deserts became places of hope rather than loss. Over time, methods improved. Contamination control became stricter. Sequencing grew more precise. Computers became faster. The idea that ancient DNA could shape our understanding of human history gained wide acceptance. Still, progress was slow. Each genome required enormous effort, and many samples remained too damaged to read clearly. This is where the bridge to artificial intelligence began to form. The early work on ancient genomes created the data and understanding that modern AI systems now depend on. Without the lessons learned from that frozen hair, there would be no foundation for machine learning models to study ancient DNA today. The Sakak genome taught scientists that patience matters. It showed that even the smallest piece of the past can change everything. Decades later, AI would build on this lesson, learning from millions of genetic patterns to do what once seemed impossible. It would take broken fragments and turn them into stories again. The frozen hair did more than preserve a genome. It preserved hope. It proved that time does not erase everything. Sometimes it simply hides the truth until humans are ready to find it. If one strand of hair could unlock a lost life, what might happen when entire genomes begin to speak together? Beyond sequencing to interpretation. For a long time, sequencing ancient DNA was the final goal. Scientists worked hard to recover genetic letters from damaged remains and place them in the correct order. This alone felt like a miracle. But as technology improved, a new question appeared. Once the DNA was sequenced, how could scientists truly understand what it meant? This is where artificial intelligence changed everything. Instead of stopping at reading DNA, researchers began teaching machines how to interpret it. Deep learning models were designed to study genomes the way people study language. Just as words form sentences and sentences form stories, DNA letters form patterns that tell the story of life. These models were trained on millions of DNA sequences. Some came from modern humans, others came from ancient remains. The machines learned which patterns appeared often, which were rare, and which seemed out of place. Over time, the systems began to recognize structures and signals that traditional statistics could not clearly detect. The process was slow and careful. Scientists fed the models enormous amounts of genetic data. The machines adjusted their internal rules again and again, learning from mistakes. Eventually, they could predict missing pieces, detect subtle changes, and compare entire populations across deep time. What made this revolutionary was not speed alone. It was sensitivity. AI could notice very small signals buried inside large data sets. These signals represented ancient population movements, mixing events and separations that happened tens of thousands of years ago. Many of these signals were too faint to be seen using older methods. One of the most important discoveries came from studying modern Asian genomes. When AI models analyzed these genomes, they found patterns that could not be explained by known human ancestors alone. The data suggested the presence of genetic material from an extinct hominin group that had never been directly identified through fossils. Scientists call this a ghost population. This did not mean that the machines invented new ancestors. Instead, they revealed footprints left behind by ancient interbreeding events. These footprints remained hidden because they were spread thinly across genomes and mixed over time. AI could trace these faint echoes back to their source. The models worked by testing hundreds of possible evolutionary scenarios. They simulated population splits, migrations, and mixing events. For each scenario, they compared the predicted genetic patterns to real data. When a model matched reality closely, scientists took notice. In this way, the genome itself guided the explanation. This approach allowed researchers to move beyond simple family trees. Human history appeared more like a woven fabric, with threads crossing and reconnecting. AI helped untangle this fabric without forcing it into neat shapes. It allowed complexity to remain visible. Inside the laboratories, the atmosphere was a mix of intense focus and quiet awe. Scientists spent hours staring at screens filled with endless strings of numbers and letters, but those numbers were more than just data. They were fragments of lives long gone. Each line of code, each pattern revealed by AI gradually formed a story of people who had lived, loved, struggled, and survived centuries or even millennia ago. As the machines reconstructed ancient genomes, researchers felt a deep connection to these individuals, realizing that the past was not as distant or silent as it seemed. AI did not replace the human mind. It acted as a partner, amplifying the ability to detect faint signals, to trace hidden connections, and to interpret complexity that would have been impossible by hand. The magic lay in the way technology allowed the voices of the long-forgotten to be heard once more. With AI, ancient DNA could finally speak, sharing stories of migrations, interbreeding, and encounters with populations previously unknown. It was not rewriting history. It was bringing it to life, revealing the intricate tapestry of humanity in ways both precise and profoundly moving. One set of bones, buried high above sea level, would soon test everything these machines had learned. A human lineage that shouldn't exist. High in the plains near the Nemocon municipality, close to Bogota in Colombia, the land stretches wide and quiet. The air is thin, and the ground holds layers of history beneath its surface. In 1992, archaeologists working in this region uncovered ancient human bones. At the time, the discovery was important but not fully understood. The remains were carefully excavated and studied. They were dated to several thousand years ago, with some estimated to be up to 6,000 years old. These individuals became known as the Chekua, named after the site where they were found. For years, the bones rested in collections, waiting for new tools to unlock their deeper story. That moment arrived in 2025. Advances in genome sequencing made it possible to extract and analyze ancient DNA from the Chekua remains. Scientists approached the task with caution. South American ancient DNA is often difficult to work with due to climate and preservation challenges. Still, enough genetic material was recovered to begin analysis. When the sequencing results appeared, confusion followed. The genomes did not align with known patterns of Native American ancestry. They showed no clear connection to the main gene flow traced back to North America or through the Beringian land bridge. Under existing models of how humans spread into the Americas, this result made little sense. Researchers checked the data again. They tested for contamination. They ran comparisons repeatedly. Each time, the same conclusion emerged. The Chekua genomes formed a distinct lineage. They did not neatly fit into established population groups. The realization was unsettling and exciting. It suggested that human presence in South America was more complex than previously believed. These people were real. Their bones, their teeth, and their DNA were physical evidence. Yet their genetic story did not follow expected paths. Archaeologists also noted physical features that stood out. Some skulls showed unusual elongation. Dental remains revealed jaw abscesses, signs of lived experience and daily hardship. These were not abstract data points. They were traces of real lives shaped by environment, diet, and culture. The high plateau setting added to the mystery. Living at altitude requires adaptation. The Chekua people had survived and built lives in this demanding landscape. Their existence challenged simple timelines and migration maps. Scientists did not claim that the Chekua should never have existed. Instead, the findings showed that current models were incomplete. The phrase that they should not exist reflected surprise, not impossibility. It was a reminder that science is always learning. The moment the divergence became clear was quiet but powerful. Screens showed branching diagrams that refused to align. Numbers confirmed what eyes could see. A population long hidden had finally stepped into view. The Chekua story showed the strength of combining archaeology, genetics, and AI. Without sequencing, the bones would remain silent. Without AI-assisted analysis, the signal might have been missed. Together, they revealed a chapter of human history that demanded attention. The High Plains kept their secret for thousands of years. In a modern lab, that secret finally unfolded. If one hidden lineage could reshape the story of the Americas, what other buried truths still wait beneath the world's oldest sands? Egypt's Old Kingdom genome. In the sun-baked sands of Upper Egypt, near a quiet settlement called Nuerat, the Earth held a secret for thousands of years, roughly 265 kilometers south of what is now Cairo. A burial site lay untouched until the early 20th century. Archaeologists digging there discovered an unusual skeleton carefully placed inside a clay pot. The delicate handling of the body suggested respect, ritual, and care. The person had lived long ago, during the Old Kingdom period, somewhere between 2,855 and 2,570 years before the Common Era. At the time, this discovery was remarkable, yet the full story of the individual remained silent beneath the layers of time. For decades, the bones rested quietly in storage, their secrets protected by the passing centuries. The technology to explore the story embedded in the skeleton was not yet ready. It would take the innovations of the 21st century to allow scientists to listen to these whispers from the past. When the year 2025 arrived, the tools existed to extract the genome from the bones and examine it fully. Researchers approached the task with extreme care, knowing that every fragment of ancient DNA was precious and fragile. The results were astonishing. About 20% of the man's genetic makeup traced back to the Eastern Fertile Crescent, an area including Mesopotamia. This suggested that long before written history connected these regions through trade and culture, human populations were moving, mixing, and interacting across vast distances. It was a glimpse of ancient migration that challenged what had long been assumed about the Old Kingdom. The majority of his ancestry remained Egyptian, rooted in the Nile Valley, yet the foreign contribution spoke of journeys and connections long forgotten. The genome results aligned beautifully with the archaeological record. Material culture from the Old Kingdom had always hinted at links with West Asia through pottery, tools, and trade items. These tangible items suggested contact, but now, through DNA, it was clear that these interactions were not only cultural, they were also biological. The Egyptian man carried the story of movement and exchange in his very cells. For the first time, scientists could say that human mobility was not a modern phenomenon. It was a truth that stretched back nearly 5,000 years. In the laboratory, the reconstruction of the genome was like watching history unfold. Computers pieced together millions of genetic letters, some broken or damaged by time. Algorithms analyzed patterns and compared them with modern and ancient populations. The machine learning models could detect subtle signs of ancestral mixing that would have been invisible to older methods. It was as if the bones themselves had been waiting patiently, holding on to their secrets until the right minds and tools came along to understand them. The story of this Old Kingdom man is both personal and broad. He is an individual with a name lost to time, yet his DNA tells a story of entire regions connecting through human life. He lived and died far from the Fertile Crescent, yet he carried a part of it inside him. He reminds us that history is not only written in stone, clay, or papyrus, but also in blood, bone, and genes. Each movement, each interbreeding event, each human choice leaves a mark, sometimes imperceptible, until modern technology allows us to perceive it. His story also shows how patient science can be. For decades, bones in a clay pot were just that, bones. They did not speak until techniques matured. When scientists finally listened, the past shared a story of travel, mixture, and human curiosity. The Egyptian man becomes a bridge between cultures separated by distance and time, reminding us that human history has always been more connected than we might imagine. The insight gained from his genome opened new possibilities. If one individual could carry such a story, what else lay hidden in other ancient remains, waiting for discovery? What other migrations, exchanges, or ancestral connections might emerge as more genomes are decoded? The clay pot, the skeleton, and the carefully preserved DNA together create a window into a world that seemed distant, yet intimately connected to our own. Even more astonishing is that this single genome is only a piece of a larger, complex puzzle. Ancient DNA studies from across Africa, Asia, and Europe increasingly show that humans were not isolated, linear populations. They moved, mixed, and adapted to new environments over thousands of years. The Egyptian man's Mesopotamian ancestry is a vivid example, showing that biology and culture often traveled together. His life reminds us that the past is not merely a static record, but a story of continuous human connection. If one Egyptian man carried secrets from a distant land, could there be entire lines of human ancestry yet undiscovered, hidden even from the bones themselves? Ghost ancestors and AI predictions. Even as scientists uncovered stories in individual genomes, deeper mysteries remained. Across continents, AI and genomic analysis revealed something unexpected. Modern genomes contain traces of ancestors no one had ever seen. These ghost ancestors do not appear in the fossil record or in archaeological sites. They exist only in the patterns of DNA passed down through countless generations. Deep learning analyses revealed faint but consistent signals in human populations around the world. These signals suggested interbreeding with unknown hominins, possibly hybrids of Neanderthals and Denisovans. In some cases, the contribution was small, but it was persistent, appearing across multiple populations. These ghost ancestors had left no monumental structures, no tools, and few identifiable bones. Yet their existence shaped the genomes of millions of modern humans. In Russia's Denisova cave, previous excavations had uncovered evidence of interbreeding between Neanderthals and Denisovans. Fossils there, combined with DNA extracted from small bone fragments, proved that hybrids existed. These findings laid the groundwork for understanding that human evolution was not a simple lineage, but a complex web. Populations met, mixed, and separated repeatedly over tens of thousands of years. What AI added was the ability to detect subtle traces of ancestors that were invisible to traditional methods. Machine learning excels at finding patterns too faint or complex for conventional analysis. By comparing millions of DNA sequences, AI can detect segments of ancestry that suggest these unknown hominins once existed. They are ghosts in the sense that we have no clear physical evidence of their lives, but their genetic fingerprints remain embedded in the living. These discoveries challenge traditional assumptions about the neatness of human evolution, showing that history is woven with encounters we are only beginning to understand. The idea of ghost ancestors stretches the imagination. They are neither myth nor legend, yet their lives are largely hidden. They remind us that evolution is not a straight path. It is full of twists, turns, and convergences. AI allows us to glimpse these twists, revealing interactions between populations separated by space and time. Each discovery adds depth to the story of humanity and enriches our understanding of who we are. In laboratories filled with glowing screens and softly humming computers, scientists examine the traces of these invisible ancestors. The DNA patterns speak in subtle ways, showing relationships, migrations, and ancient mixing events. While we may never see the fossils of these ghost hominins, their impact is undeniable. They contributed to adaptation, survival, and diversity in our species. They remind us that humanity is not the product of a single line, but of a network of lives intertwined over millennia. Ghost ancestors challenge the boundaries of knowledge. They suggest that human history has chapters yet unread, stories that lie hidden in the strands of DNA within each of us. By revealing these traces, AI is not simply analyzing data. It is helping us meet distant relatives we have never known, ancestors whose lives shaped ours without leaving monuments or names. Every new genome sequenced, every model refined, brings us closer to understanding the vast network of humanity. From the Egyptian man carrying Mesopotamian ancestry to the unseen ghost populations, a pattern emerges. The past is never fully lost. It lingers quietly in our cells, waiting for the patient, careful listening of scientists and machines. Each discovery transforms our understanding of ourselves, showing that humans are not just survivors of time, but storytellers of life encoded in every genome. The discoveries of ghost ancestors and unexpected lineages remind us that human history is more intricate than any map or timeline can show. The past is alive in us, layered and interconnected, waiting for those who can read it. It asks us to reconsider what we know and to remain open to the surprises that time may reveal. If some ancestors are invisible even in fossils, what might we learn when genomes from the oldest places on Earth finally speak together in chorus, revealing the full symphony of human history? The past that refuses to stay silent. Human history has always been a story we thought we understood. From early lessons about the first humans in Africa to maps of migration across continents, textbooks painted neat lines connecting the past to the present. Yet the latest discoveries in ancient DNA are showing that the story is far more tangled, full of twists, unexpected turns, and branches that vanish without warning. These findings are forcing scientists and all of us to rethink what we know about our origins. The past is not simple. Ancient DNA now reveals that human ancestry is not a straight line from one population to the next. Instead, it looks more like a web, with many strands crossing, separating, and sometimes disappearing entirely. Populations once thought unrelated show faint but undeniable genetic connections. Some lineages vanished without leaving many traces, yet tiny pieces of their DNA survived in modern humans. Others mixed and remixed, creating combinations that challenge old assumptions. Even regions far from each other in space and time show evidence of contact, movement, and interbreeding. The past is alive in our genomes, quietly waiting for the right tools to uncover it. Artificial intelligence has become one of those tools. Machine learning models, trained on millions of DNA sequences, can detect patterns invisible to traditional methods. They can reconstruct genomes from fragments, predict missing sequences, and even simulate evolutionary scenarios. AI allows the genome to speak, revealing histories that humans could not easily read on their own. Just as microscopes once allowed scientists to see cells for the first time, AI is letting us see hidden chapters in our species' story. Each discovery uncovers connections we never knew existed and challenges us to see humans not as static, separate groups, but as a fluid, interconnected species. One of the most striking implications of these findings is philosophical. For centuries, humans have imagined ancestry as simple and clean, with clear divisions between populations, cultures, and species. Yet the DNA tells a different story. Lineages that shouldn't exist are embedded within our genomes. They are living evidence that evolution is not tidy, that our ancestors were not bound by artificial boundaries, and that the categories we create are often too narrow to capture reality. Discovering hidden populations challenges notions of purity, continuity, and a linear path from past to present. It reminds us that our species is the product of mixing, adaptation, survival, and creativity. These discoveries are not just academic. They reshape our understanding of identity, connection, and human diversity. When we see that our DNA carries remnants of populations lost to time, we are forced to confront the idea that humanity is broader, stranger, and more complex than we ever imagined. Our past is not only the story of survival, it is the story of interaction, innovation, and unexpected encounters that shaped who we are today. Each genome, ancient or modern, becomes a mirror, reflecting both continuity and change, revealing that we are the sum of countless invisible histories. The practical implications are profound as well. AI-driven genome analysis can now explore questions about how ancient humans adapted to environments, how they responded to climate changes, and how cultural exchanges influenced genetic patterns. It can predict how lineages merged or vanished, giving insight into survival and extinction on scales previously impossible to imagine. Every discovery opens new paths for research, new connections between distant populations, and new possibilities for understanding what it means to be human. Yet perhaps the most powerful reflection is philosophical and emotional. The past is not fixed. It does not belong only to those who lived it or to those who write history books. It exists within us, in the cells and sequences that carry echoes of lives long gone. Technology is giving us the ability to listen, not just see. It reminds us that history is not a static record, but a living story, unfolding quietly in the strands of DNA that make up each of us. What once seemed impossible is now within reach, and what we thought we knew about ourselves is being rewritten in ways both humbling and beautiful. In the end, the discoveries of ancient DNA and AI-driven interpretation leave us with a single profound truth. Human history is far richer, stranger, and more interconnected than we ever imagined. We carry within us the shadows of lineages that should not exist, reminders that evolution is messy, creative, and resilient. Every genome is a whisper from the past, urging us to rethink, to imagine, and to embrace the extraordinary complexity of life. As we continue to uncover these hidden chapters, we are not just learning about ancient humans, we are learning about ourselves. The past refuses to stay silent. It lives quietly in our genes, waiting for those who are ready to listen, to learn, and to be amazed. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.